Good afternoon and welcome back to the National Press Theatre. For this afternoon's press conference, we have with us Minister of Foreign Affairs Mélanie Joly and Immigration Minister Marc Miller. We have 30 minutes in total for today's press conference. We'll begin with some opening remarks from the ministers. We will turn to the floor for questions, and if we have time, we will go to the considerable list of people who are online. With that, over to you, ministers.
Thank you. Thank you. Je vais commencer en anglais et après j'irai en français. Good afternoon. I'm here with you today along with my colleague and friend, Minister Miller, dear Marc. As of now, I can confirm that India has formally conveyed its plan to unilaterally remove diplomatic immunities for all but 21 Canadian diplomats and dependents in Delhi by tomorrow, October 20th. This means 41 Canadian diplomats and their 42 dependents were in danger of having immunity stripped on an arbitrary date, and this would put their personal safety at risk. The safety of Canadians and of our diplomats is always my top concern. Given the implications of India's actions on the safety of our diplomats, we have facilitated their safe departure from India. This means that our diplomats and their families have now left. Diplomatic immunities keep diplomats safe, no matter where they're from and where they're sent to. Immunities allow diplomats to do their work without fear of reprisal or arrest from the country they're in. They are a fundamental principle of diplomacy, and this is a two-way street. They only work if every country abides by the rules. A unilateral revocation of diplomatic privilege and immunities is contrary to international law. It is a clear violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. And threatening to do so is unreasonable and escalatory. If we allow the norm of diplomatic immunity to be broken, no diplomats anywhere on the planet would be safe. So for this reason, we will not reciprocate. Canadians watching may be wondering what this means for our operations in India. There's no question that India's decision will impact levels of services to citizens in both countries. Unfortunately, we have to put a pause on all in-person services in our consulates in Chandigarh, in Mumbai, and in Bangalore. And I will let my colleagues speak for what that means for immigration services, but also for consular services. Canadians who need consular assistance can still visit our High Commission in Delhi, and you can still also do that in person, reach by phone and by email. Let me be clear. Canada will continue to defend international law, which applies to all nations, and will continue to engage with India. Now more than ever, we need diplomats on the ground, and we need to talk to one another. Alors, bonjour à tous, je suis avec mon collègue ici, le ministre de l'Immigration, Marc Miller. Nous confirmons aujourd'hui que l'Inde nous a officiellement fait part de son intention de lever unilatéralement l'immunité diplomatique des diplomates canadiens et des personnes à leur charge à Delhi, à l'exception de 21 d'entre eux, d'ici demain, le 20 octobre. Cela signifie que 41 diplomates canadiens et 42 personnes à charge risquaient de se voir retirer leur immunité à une date arbitraire, mettant leur sécurité personnelle en danger. La sécurité des Canadiens et de nos diplomates est toujours notre priorité. Compte tenu des implications des actions du gouvernement indien, nous avons pris la décision d'organiser le départ de ces 41 diplomates et de leurs familles en toute sécurité. Les immunités diplomatiques garantissent la sécurité des diplomates, quel que soit leur pays d'origine et leur lieu d'affectation. Les immunités permettent aux diplomates de faire leur travail sans crainte de représailles de la part du pays dans lequel ils se trouvent. Il s'agit d'un principe fondamental de la diplomatie et ces règles-là ne fonctionnent que si chaque pays respecte ces règles. Une révocation unilatérale des privilèges et immunités diplomatiques est contraire au droit international incluant la Convention de Vienne. Et menacer de le faire est non seulement déraisonnable, mais participe à escalader la situation. Si nous acceptons cette façon de faire, aucun diplomate, où qu'il se soit, ne sera en sécurité sur la planète. Et pour cette raison, le Canada ne prendra pas cette même approche que l'Inde. Les Canadiens qui nous regardent présentement se demandent peut-être qu'est-ce que cela signifie pour nos opérations en Inde. Il ne fait aucun doute que la décision de l'Inde aura un impact sur les niveaux de services offerts aux citoyens canadiens et aux citoyens indiens. Malheureusement, nous avons dû interrompre les services en personne dans nos consulats à Chandigarh, à Mumbai et à Bangalore. Et je vais laisser mon collègue Marc vous expliquer les impacts sur nos services d'immigration. Quant aux services consulaires, les Canadiens qui ont besoin d'une assistance consulaire peuvent toujours se rendre au Haut-Commissariat à New Delhi. Vous pouvez toujours aussi appeler ou envoyer un courriel pour avoir une réponse à vos questions. Soyons clairs. Le Canada continuera à défendre le droit international qui s'applique à tous les pays. Et nous continuerons d'échanger avec l'Inde. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, nous avons besoin des diplomates sur le terrain et nous allons continuer le dialogue. Merci. À toi, Marc.
Merci, Mélanie. Good afternoon. Bon après-midi. Je voulais d'abord souligner notre présence sur le territoire non cédé algonquin. Canada and India have strong and long-standing people-to-people ties. In 2022, for example, India was the top country for permanent residents, temporary foreign workers, and international students in Canada. It goes without saying that we value the contributions of the Indian community in Canada and recognize the importance of Canada-Indian relations on families, business, and pure people-to-people ties. Following India's intent to unilaterally remove immunities for all but 21 Canadian diplomats and dependents in Delhi by October 20th, 2023, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada will be significantly reducing the number of Canadian employees in India. I want to reassure our clients in India and Canadians who have family and friends in India that Canada will continue to accept and process all temporary and permanent resident applications from India. Toutefois, cette réduction de personnel aura des répercussions à court terme et j'ose le penser à moyen terme. Mon département s'efforce d'atténuer l'impact sur nos clients en continuant à répartir la charge de travail au sein de notre réseau mondial de traitement qui traite déjà la majorité, il faut le souligner, des demandes en provenance de l'Inde. Toutefois, une partie du travail devra encore être effectuée dans le pays même. Par conséquent, des retards de traitement et de services sont prévus pour les demandes en provenance de l'Inde. Les clients, entre autres, risquent de voir les délais de traitement s'allonger et de devoir attendre plus longtemps avant d'obtenir des réponses à leurs questions ou de voir leur visa imprimé dans leur passeport. Remaining staff will continue to focus on the work that can't be moved out of the country, such as urgent cases, visa printing, and working with visa application centers and the panel physicians who conduct the important immigration medical exams for applicants. Our visa application centers are operated by third-party contractors, so they won't be impacted and will continue to function as normal. Applicants will still be able to receive administrative support, transmit passports, and submit their biometrics at one of our 10 centers in India. India isn't only the top country for permanent and temporary residents, but their citizens have made great contributions to Canada, and that can't be understated. Newcomers from India have played a vital role, and we will continue to welcome them. Je répète que les ressortissants indiens peuvent continuer à demander à étudier au Canada, que des établissements d'enseignement désignés au Canada continueront à accueillir des étudiants indiens. Les nouvelles demandes seront traitées, mais malheureusement, à un rythme plus lent. We acknowledge the concerns and frustrations that this situation may cause for clients, families, educational institutions, communities, businesses, and Canada as a whole. Toutefois, nous tenons à vous assurer que le Canada reste déterminé à accueillir les citoyens indiens qui souhaitent venir ici pour visiter, travailler, étudier, retrouver des proches ou espérons-le faire du Canada leur chez eux. We're grateful for the dedication of our staff who have been heavily impacted by this around the world and their tireless efforts to minimize the impact of the situation. Finally, just let me say that as ministers of the government, our primary role is to keep Canadians abroad safe and folks living in Canada. safe, no matter what their race, color, creed, and we'll continue to do that. Thank you for your attention. I'll now open the floor for questions. On est impatient maintenant de prendre vos questions.
Thank you, ministers. We'll go to the floor first for questions. One question, one follow-up. If you are online, if you could raise your hand at this time so I know how many questions we might be able to field from there, that would be great. And we'll begin with Valérie Miquela.
Madame Joly, comment est-ce que vous qualifieriez ce qui se passe, ce que l'Inde a décidé de faire? Est-ce que c'est déraisonnable selon vous?
Mais c'est clairement une réaction qui n'est pas mesurée. C'est une réaction également qui est contraire au droit international et qui est contraire à la Convention de Vienne. Et voilà exactement pourquoi nous n'allons pas réagir de la même manière. Parce que le Canada est un pays qui suit ses principes liés bien entendu à notre propre souveraineté nationale, à notre propre protection de nos citoyens, mais aussi les principes de base du droit international.
Je vous amène sur un autre sujet, la francophonie, pour ma collègue Joly Dufresne d'Enquête. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du climat malsain, de la dictature qui est dépeinte dans le reportage d'Enquête au sujet de ce qui se passe à l'OIF?
Bien, c'est clair qu'on a des préoccupations que j'ai déjà exprimées à la secrétaire générale, et c'est pourquoi nous avons également envoyé une lettre claire à la secrétaire générale que j'ai signée un peu plus tôt cette année, et nous avons décidé de rediriger une partie du budget destiné à l'OIF vers d'autres organisations qui œuvrent dans le domaine de la francophonie.
Jillian?
Hi, Jillian Piper from Global News. Are you encouraging India to lift the Canadian visa suspension, and if so, how?
Want to take this one? So first and foremost, the only thing we're encouraging India to do is to respect international law. So that is why today we have a principled approach, which is to make sure that we will not reciprocate to their action of getting rid of diplomatic immunities to 41 of our diplomats, which is clearly contrary to international law.
You're talking about people going...
Canada looking to go there.
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate foremost for the people that are looking to go to India. We always want a diplomatic solution to these things. Again, I'm not the diplomat, but we won't compromise our principles at the same time.
Follow up, how disruptive would you say that the suspension of Canadian visas to India has been, specifically for your office, Mr. Miller?
Well, we're hearing obviously stories of people that have spent money and have gone to a lot of expense to buy tickets, sometimes a trip of a lifetime. It's sad. It is not insignificant. So, you know, we always want to make sure that things are flowing smoothly, but it obviously isn't the case. And, you know, we know enough about the people that we deal with internationally to know how they behave, and some of it's predictable. And I'll leave it at that.
Ray?
Bonjour. Quelle raison l'Inde vous a donnée? Est-ce qu'on vous a clairement dit que c'était lié aux propos de M. Trudeau le 18 septembre?
Le premier ministre a été clair. Il a déclaré en Chambre des communes que nous avions de l'information, donc il y avait clairement des allégations crédibles du meurtre d'un Canadien en territoire canadien et du lien possible entre des agents du gouvernement indien. Et donc, dans les circonstances, nous avons appelé le gouvernement indien à faire en sorte de collaborer avec nous sur l'enquête pour faire face à cette situation-là. Avant même la déclaration du premier ministre, plusieurs membres du gouvernement et de la fonction publique ont parlé avec le gouvernement indien et ont plusieurs discussions. Et donc, ce n'était pas une surprise pour le gouvernement indien. Maintenant, le gouvernement indien a décidé de prendre cette décision qui est contraire au droit international, qui mettait à risque 41 de nos diplomates. Une situation sans précédent. Une situation qui, si par exemple pouvait arriver dans plusieurs pays avec lesquels les pays n'ont pas nécessairement de bonnes relations, mais qu'ils ont quand même une représentation diplomatique, ça mettrait en danger les diplomates dans ce pays. Donc, c'est extrêmement préoccupant. Ça crée un précédent. Et donc, c'est pourquoi nous décidons de ne pas réagir de la même façon, parce que c'est tout à fait déraisonnable.
Mais quelles raisons vous ont-ils donné pour cette décision de déclarer persona non grata des diplomates canadiens?
Aucune bonne raison.
Mais aucune raison du tout?
Aucune bonne raison. Il n'y a aucune
bonne raison. Mais aucune raison.
Mais il n'y a aucune raison, en vertu du droit international, que du jour au lendemain, qu'un pays puisse enlever cette protection diplomatique-là. En vertu du droit international, incluant la Convention de Vienne. Donc, c'est pour ça que je dis que ça crée un précédent.
Minister, India says that you haven't provided them specific information to back your claim. So can you clarify, have you shown them the evidence you're basing your claim on, and have you walked them through that case and shown them how Canada has reached this conclusion?
We've had numerous conversations with India before the Prime Minister went in front of the House and made his declaration. This was not a surprise to the government of India.
Not a surprise, but the evidence, did you show them
And
the evidence?
through these different conversations, the Indian officials were made aware of the credible allegations. And so based on that, India has decided to take their own decisions, which are precedent-setting, and revoking the diplomatic immunity of 41 diplomats is not only unprecedented, but also contrary to international law. And so in that sense, because this is so unprecedented and would put so many countries, different diplomats around the world in danger, we decide not to reciprocate.
Okay, so that's a repetition of your statement, and thank you. I understand what your point is, but you're not answering the question directly on that point. But you did...
Tonda, I've answered your question. You've asked me the question whether we had conversation and presented
If you
evidence.
showed them the evidence, yes.
I've told you that there were meetings and information was shared. So I've answered your question.
And so it's in terms of the conversations that you've had and the talks that you've been having to stop this eventuality, it's happened over a number of weeks. It's been reported that you personally went to Washington and spoke to the Indian Foreign Minister. If you could confirm that to us. And can you describe what the tenor of right now, I know you're not going to talk about what exactly you said, but what is the tenor of the diplomatic conversation? Is it still ongoing or is it over now?
Well, I always believe in diplomacy. And I believe so much in diplomacy that I really think that diplomacy is best when it's kept private. So I will continue to do that. And I know that my colleague, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, can count on me to make sure that we continue to engage, and I ask India's full cooperation.
Raphaël?
Bonjour, Madame Joly, sur Israël. Est-ce que vous avez vu les preuves ou les informations qui ont été transférées par Israël concernant l'explosion à un hôpital à Gaza?
Je me suis fait poser la question en chambre aujourd'hui, plus tôt. Ma réponse a été claire, c'est-à-dire que certainement ce qui s'est passé à Gaza est absolument horrible. Les civils palestiniens et les civils israéliens sont égaux et les deux doivent être protégés. Le Premier ministre a répondu à cette question un peu plus tôt aujourd'hui et il a été clair. Le Canada et ses alliés sont en discussion à ce sujet-là présentement et les Canadiens ont droit à une réponse.
Les organisations juives viennent de publier un statement qui demande au gouvernement de se rétracter et de trancher, en fait, sur cette question-là. Donc, est-ce que vous pensez que dans un horizon de temps, d'ici peut-être la fin de semaine, qu'on va pouvoir que le gouvernement va pouvoir trancher sur cette question-là.
J'ai répondu à votre question.
Jordan?
Hi, Jordan Galling, CTV News. I'd just like to follow up on my colleagues' questions in English. So U.S. and Israel intelligence are now saying the strike on the hospital earlier this week was not Israel. Are you satisfied with that as a government? And can you also respond to Jewish groups wanting you to retract or clarify your earlier comments on this event?
So I've said it in the House, I've said it in French, I'll say it again. And this is my declaration. First, what happened in Gaza is completely devastating. And not only is it devastating, but we've been clear. Israeli lives and Palestinian lives are important. Israeli civilians and Palestinian civilians are equal and must be protected at all times. The Prime Minister has already mentioned has already answered this question. There's been numerous conversations. Canada's in contact with all of its allies on this issue, and I understand that Canadians want an answer, and we will make sure to know what exactly happened.
Okay, and just my follow-up is regarding international aid getting through Rafah crossing tomorrow. The U.S. State Department said today that they're going to try and get American nationals out while that's happening. Is there any plan for Canada to do the same?
See, every time I talk with colleagues in the region, maybe Israelis, maybe the Palestinian Authority, maybe the U.S. and different levels of officials within the U.S., Egypt, Jordan, I always say the same thing. Yes, humanitarian aid must be going in. There must be a humanitarian corridor. We need to make sure that Canadians get out of Gaza. There's around 400 Canadians that are right now asking to be supported to get out of Gaza. And also, we are always calling for international hostages to be released. This is what I say and how I engage with every single government linked to this issue. I've had also conversations with many Gulf states, including Qatar, on this issue.
Tom Perry?
Hi, Minister. I'm just wondering, do you accept India's numbers for the number of diplomats that they have here and that Canada has there? I think the Indians say that there are 62 Canadian diplomats in India, but only 21 here in Canada. So do you accept those numbers?
So we had 41. 41 have left. We have 21 that have left. That have stayed, I'm sorry. So 41 that have left, 21 that have stayed in India. And what we don't accept is the fact that overnight, like this, India has decided to get rid of the diplomatic immunity. And having diplomats in a country without having diplomatic immunity given by that country puts their security at risk. And this is a risk that the government of Canada is not willing to take. We have a duty of care towards these diplomats, and we need to make sure that while they're serving our country abroad, that we're there for them. So that is why we will not reciprocate. So to your question, we won't ask India to get rid of its diplomats, or we won't revoke any of their diplomatic immunity here in Canada.
Okay, and you're not going to reciprocate. Is there going to be any kind of retaliation from Canada? Are you going to do anything in response to this beyond, I guess, what you're doing here, lodging a complaint?
Well, two things. First, we called persona non grata a key official of India already. So we did that following the Prime Minister's declaration in the House of Commons. Second, we've asked India for its full cooperation linked to an investigation that is happening on linked to the murder of a Canadian here in Canada. This again is precedent setting. This again has never been seen. And so this is a fundamental violation of our sovereignty as a country. And so that's why we ask full cooperation from India.
Dylan?
Thanks for taking your questions. Just looking for some clarity on the threat around immunity that you got from India, if it was assigned to specific diplomats or if it was more of a quota that we're going to only give immunity to X number and you need to get X out. And just building on that question, just wondering what types, if it was about specific types of diplomats who work on political issues, who work on consular issues, if any of those were targeted and who's left, if it's sort of a mix, if it's only political people, it's kind of a...
So Dylan, your question will be better answered by through the tech briefing that is coming up afterwards. So
the threat that
so I think you'll be able to ask that question and get details.
Yeah. And could you just elaborate, what would full cooperation look like from India?
In the context of the investigation, of course, we need to make sure that they first respect our national sovereignty here, and second, that they provide support. So that's the only thing I can say at this point. And meanwhile, the Minister of Public Safety is working on this, and law enforcement, of course, agencies are working actively on the case.
Thank you. We have a few minutes, so we're going to turn to questions online.
Yeah.
Again, to my online colleagues, if you'd like to have a question, please use the raise hand function on Zoom, and then I will unmute you when it is time. And our first question will be from Dimitri from the Financial Times.
Thank you. Good afternoon. India originally set a deadline of October 10. Obviously, you've gone 10 days beyond that. Does that suggest that in your conversations with the Indians or in the meeting that you had with Jaishankar in Washington, did you get close to any kind of resolution, or were you far apart the whole time?
Thank you, Dimitri, for your question. And I'll answer your question like I answered others here in the room, is that, of course, I won't comment any diplomatic conversations. And I believe that diplomacy is always better when it's kept private.
Do you have a follow-up, Dimitri? Go ahead.
I know you can't get into the details, but can you give us any sense, or was there any point where you thought you might resolve this? Or was it hopeless the whole time?
See, Dimitri, I'm a door opener. I'm not a door closer. I'm a person that believes that engagement is always worth it. And I'll always continue to do that. And I'll always continue to talk with my colleagues around the world, including my Indian counterpart.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions we have online. Did any of my colleagues, we have time for one more question from the room. Dylan, go ahead.
Yes, Dylan, go ahead.
Question about Azerbaijan. We still haven't laid any sanctions against officials in Azerbaijan. With Haiti, we did it alone at first. We were a leader, as you've often said, in laying sanctions, but lately your government's been saying we need to work with other countries. Why are we not taking the same tack when it comes to Azerbaijan, given the possibility of ethnic cleansing, as Bob Ray said?
So I've been clear on our position on Azerbaijan. I will be going to Armenia in the coming weeks and we'll have more to say. As for Haiti...
No, but sanctions for Azerbaijan was the question.
Yes, and I said already, you heard me, you even wrote about it, Dylan, everything was on the table. And we always say that all countries in the world need to respect the borders of their neighbors and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of their neighbors. That's the same for Armenia, and that's the same for Azerbaijan. But if you want me to talk about Haiti, I've been working a lot on the issue because of the CARICOM summit that was happening. And so I've had conversations with Prime Minister Henry 2 times. I had conversations with the UN representative in Haiti. I had conversation with the eminent person, Bruce Golding, which is the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, that has the mandate for the CARICOM to find a political dialogue and support the political dialogue in Haiti. That has been also at the core of what I've been doing over the past 2 days. Thank you, guys.
That concludes today's press conference. Thank you, ministers.
Thank you. Yes.